All right, good afternoon. This is edition 2 of Talk of the County, live from the National Association of Counties annual conference in Hillsborough County, Florida. I am here to talk information technology with Rita Reynolds, the Chief Information Officer for NACo. As an introduction, Ms. Reynolds, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you landed in this role?
That is a great question. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And I have to say, in all of my work for the past 36 years, it's all been focused on counties. I started out, this will be the short version for you, but I started out in Pennsylvania as a consultant working with children and youth counties and doing database and computer design for them. And did that for 11 years. I then went to work for the State Association in Pennsylvania and was there for 20 years. And we developed quite a few programs on behalf of counties and developed a county IT network within Pennsylvania. Throughout those years, I started coming to NACo and was very familiar with the committees, was on a number of the committees, and did a lot of support to the NACo CIO then to help build some of the content. And it was just kind of one of those lifetime opportunities where I became aware of the position that was open, and I went online. I said, you know what, I'm just going to send this to some of my CIO friends in Pennsylvania. Started reading it, and my husband said, that's you. You need to apply. And so the short story from there is I applied, and it was really to the NACo staff that were reviewing. They were like, this is the right person for this job. And so I've been there for 5 years, about a week ago.
One of NACo's greatest strengths is its task forces that have been formed over the years. I can think of the work that has been done in sustainable housing, in mental health, county futures. I mean, that's just a wealth of data in research. And now NACo has put together some excellent work on AI and put together a team of experts to discuss artificial intelligence, something that was a part of our lives via Siri and other forms, and really didn't think about it.
That's right.
Now everyone thinks of AI as this new creature. Can you talk a little bit about the recent report that came out from this group of professionals representing NACo on the AI Exploratory Committee?
Absolutely. And if I had about 3 hours, we could go into in-depth for sure, but I won't do that today. I have to say that it's been about a year, a little over a year, that it came to fruition, the formation of the AI Exploratory Committee under NACo, and it consists of 16 county elected officials along with a couple chief information officers. And it really was a pivotal moment in our history, and I've said this to a number of our county IT leaders and to others. This is definitely the most opportunistic time for technology over the course of my career, which goes back into early 1980s. And other than, of course, the evolution of the internet, this definitely is at the top of the list. What is interesting, as you noted, AI, artificial intelligence, has been around for a very long time. And that, as we started meeting with the Exploratory Committee, everyone was like, oh, so what part is new? And that's the generative part. The older part, as we call it, the predictive part, is already there in
we've let the thing out of the bag.
Yeah, and now
we've let the thing out of the bag. That thing being AI.
Oh,
I think that's why everyone's talking about it now.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the genie is out of the bottle, and we're not going back. It is so accessible now to anyone. It's not just IT developers or those that have the expertise in data analytics. It is virtually anyone can benefit from artificial intelligence.
Makes life better. I think an appliance corporate company said that once. It makes life better, and that's really where I think of AI. But AI has to be used responsibly.
Yes. And that was the formation then under the exploratory committee, the work groups. So we focused on a work group with policy. We focused on a work group around ethics. We focused on a work group with how is this going to affect the workforce, because there are tremendous impacts there. And then the final one was around applications themselves. But the challenge and what we're seeing is the piece with the ethics part. And there is so much to be learned and understood, but we're already seeing that there is bias in the data. The data may not be accurate. We all talk about going to the internet and doing a search,
Right.
and when you look at the source of what you're getting, you're like, that can't be right.
Right.
So there definitely is a lot of challenges there.
We saw some of the biases play out in the book that NACo published that was put together using artificial intelligence and targeted at children to explain county governance. And AI has biases that came out that I discussed with some of your folks.
We actually had a lot of conversation around the efforts, of course, that the executive director, Matt Chase, put into putting the book together, and seeing, first of all, when you look at some of the images, like he had to really work hard to make sure all the digits on the hands were there, first of all, and then it's the diversity. And a number of us were able to review it before it was finalized, and that was part of our conversation. You can see the bias, and so he worked really hard along with a number of others to address as much as possible. It will get better over time, I think, and when I say it's the how can we address the bias and be the more aware we are of it, then it's that human in the loop reviewing and where we go from there. So there's still a lot to be learned.
Yeah, you know, when we give a command to a device and ask it to assist us, we ask ourselves questions. Does AI have empathy? Does AI have a conscience? Will AI try to give you guidance that will keep you safe, so to speak?
And I was doing some research a couple weeks ago. If you go out to YouTube and you put in a search for robots or something along those lines, it is extremely interesting what's coming back and what some of the other countries are doing. The empathy part, the robot is starting to learn based on interactions with humans. It's somewhat scary. At the same time, we see the opportunities.
Yeah, you know, how many of us haven't been in a meeting where our phone has said, I didn't understand what you just said. You know, I mean, it's happened to all of us multiple times. You thinking, you're like, there it goes, there it goes.
Well, think about early on with our cell phones and the voice to text. And I've talked to a lot of folks, oh, so-and-so was using this and they said this into the phone, but what it typed out was not what the person said. And so over the years, that has become much better, and more often than not, what you're saying is what's showing up on the text. And that's the same thing with where we're headed with artificial intelligence, generative AI. It will keep getting better.
Yeah. I can imagine being in interviews. You know, that's a big part of what we do, and by integrating AI into your HR function, you could be in an interview with someone and they was like, you barely made it here. You were the 5th candidate. And then you'd be like, everyone just like, what do I do? AI did it.
Well, and interestingly, you bring that up from the HR perspective. We have the NACo Tech Exchange, where there's over 1,100 county IT leaders that dialogue. And one of the questions that came up had to do with seeing results from the applications coming in for a position. And they were reviewing them, and there were 2 that had identical answers. And they figured out that these 2 individuals had used the same tool to answer the question. Now, the follow-up to that is, how is that different than a staffing firm helping someone write their resume? And what do we do with that? Do we not interview the individual?
Right,
so
right,
it's
right.
puts you in a dilemma of how to move forward in some cases.
You know, many times in my office, I'm typing up an email, and the software that I use will say, "Thanks, that sounded informative and assertive," or "that sounded friendly and compassionate," you know. And then you take it and you process it, and you're like, is that really the tone that I want before you push send?
Right. Well, and what we're hearing from an educational perspective in helping staff learn how to use the different tools, what you ask it with the prompt and how you ask the question is important. And you can say, I want to answer to this question, but do it very professionally, or word it very informally. And that's to your point about the email, how you write and how you type. Those prompts need to reflect that, and eventually the tools are going to understand the way in which you do
temperament, because people see tone through communications. Yep. You know, you can tell when someone writes a memorandum and some bad things have just happened that they want to correct. Because it's best to take a step back and read it later, so maybe you can dial it back some from where you first have it. But I'm just wondering about the future of AI. How many times in an office, whether in government or business, someone sent out an email that shouldn't have never been sent? It caused either all kinds of toxic discussions within the organization, or it broke up a professional relationship. Just one email. And will AI get assertive enough to where it will say, don't do it?
It actually
don't push send.
Yeah, we're getting to that point. There are some of the tools now that will say, are you sure you want to send this? Is this what you want to say? And I've had conversations with several folks that have said, I'm getting emails from so-and-so, and I know good and well they use the generative tool. It's not their normal tone. So whether that's good or bad, the good part of it is if someone realizes sometimes my tone doesn't come across right, putting it into the tool, the question or the comment, reword this in a softer way or a more communicative way, helps them deliver their message in the email, for example. And so they can reword it, but it's how you use the tool.
Yeah, and another area that I'm concerned about AI in is AI making policy decisions, or AI making decisions that impact a person receiving a benefit that they may desperately need. And it may not take all of the facts in consideration. It may take a shortcut and make a policy decision. Because a big part of what America's counties do, pretty much, when you've seen one county, you've seen one county. Right. But something that we all do is eligibility, and determine eligibility for various manual benefits.
And I'm holding here, of course, our new report that just came out. And while it gives some history, it gives some benefits and opportunities, it covers a number of recommendations. And the one area where it has the recommendation of human in the loop, it is so important that through those type of situations that it's being used, there is a human reviewing. And even on the court side, there's tools now that will collect all the information, put it in front of you, and based on your series of questions, say, here's what we believe the answer is, and what they're pulling from the court documents itself. The human still has to be in the loop and has to do that review.
Yeah. So let's, since you have that nice, shiny, new, fresh report, and I said NACo always puts together fantastic reports. Let's talk about some of the key findings. Because I know you said in the beginning you didn't want to be here 5 hours breaking it all down for me. Plus, you would lose me if I wouldn't understand all those acronyms and such in here. But for the general listener of this podcast, highlight some of the key findings in this report, and then how do you plan to communicate those key things to members of NACo for their benefit?
That was an excellent question. I turn to the page that we call the landscape analysis, and it's a very good summary of 2 pages of what are the benefits, what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities. And we like to start with the benefits, and that was the findings from the committee, in that we know this is going to enhance productivity, and we can see that it will assist with improving service delivery to our residents in the county, and it also is going to make it easier for county staff to generate new ideas and develop new solutions much faster. And we are seeing that already. And it will increase what we call equity and accessibility. It's not going to solve the whole problem that we all are facing, but it definitely is going to allow more residents, regardless of their socioeconomic position, to benefit from the different services and the different resources through the use of AI and generative AI. With that comes the challenge. And the first challenge, of course, is the governance. Early on in the committee's work, it was stated, I told the county, elected officials talking about this, that we're not going to allow staff to use generative AI. And he said, that didn't work. And the reality is that you have staff within your departments already using. It may not be the county tool, it may be the personal tool on their personal device. And so the challenge there is developing the appropriate policy and the governance of how you're going to use the generative tools, for example. Of course, security and privacy is always a concern, and knowing your data that you're working with, your information that you might be putting into these tools, stay away from private information is part of, goes under that policy. There are, and I don't think that anyone has really landed on how to solve the copyright issue. I go back to the days when I was doing training on folks on how to use email, and they would send the actual document off the internet in the email. And we're like, you're probably violating copyright somewhere. And instead of doing that, send the link. Like, we found ways to solve the problem. We're going to have the same issue already here.
Yep.
So, and then accuracy of the data, and then of course the bias that we've already talked about. There's still a huge opportunity here to improve, as I said, social services, public safety and security, thinking about emergency management and being able to respond to whether it's hurricanes or vehicle accidents. Artificial intelligence can be used to facilitate, and generative AI as well, in collecting information from those areas. So the other piece of it is we have seen such an improvement of the collaboration between counties and cities, other local institutions, private partners or private industry. This is a area of technology that everyone is looking at and saying, how can we make the world better? And how can we work together to make the world better in a reliable way? So that is covered in here, and then in the document. And then when you get into, there's recommendations in here. Prior to that, there are what we call guiding principles. And it's back to your comment. You've seen one county, you've seen one county. There's 3,069 counties. So it's important that when using this toolkit to remember to be flexible. There are parts of it that will definitely apply, and there's different levels that you can enter into with generative AI and of course the use of artificial intelligence. And you may be at level 1. You may be at the low risk area. And then there may be other counties that are like, we're ready to tackle something in human services. And what do we need to be aware of? And that's what the recommendations in this document help guide.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, when you've seen one county, you've seen one county. I say that all the time. And I'm going to add to that, when you've seen one county, you've seen one county. But when you've seen Franklin County, you've seen the best county. So all the listeners that call Franklin County home, we are all in a great place. Even though I'm enjoying being on the road here, learning all the exciting things I'm learning at this conference, but Franklin County is home. Let's talk about digital equity. It's been a big issue for NACo. NACo has been a leader in doing studies and measuring even the speed of broadband. in the different corners of the country, examining the 3,069 counties you referenced.
Absolutely, and that goes back quite a number of years. Well, let me start with first, digital equity. It can be defined in several ways. I mean, we first think about where are you located and do you have broadband access? And then there's the educational piece of it. What do our students, our young adults, and those in school have access to in their schools? That's another way of looking at it. And of course, the accessibility part. It costs. It costs to have internet. And if you want digital equity, you have to have access to the internet. So let me start with that first off. NACo, to that point, a number of years ago, recognized that we're talking anecdotally. We know that there's challenges with broadband internet access, and we know that those numbers coming out of different national, I don't want to name anybody, but out of the national resources aren't accurate. So they developed their own tested app. And it's been fabulous because that data that's coming back, that we all are like, hey, I'm on I-81 going through Virginia. No, I do not have access right here. Go off, or I do, and I go off 2 miles and I don't.
Right.
So we've been able to use, NACo's been able to use the tested data to go back to those at the national level to say, we need to do more work here.
Also, broadband and digital equity is a urban and a rural issue.
Yeah.
And NACo is perfectly positioned to represent both constituencies through either the Rural Action Caucus or the large urban county caucus. And pretty much going to cover all the counties in between because it's really an issue impacting both urban and rural areas. And I argue strongly, and we learned during the pandemic, that access to fast, reliable broadband is a utility. It should be considered a public utility. It should be like water running out of your faucet, as far as how essential it is.
Yep. Absolutely, and the federal government has recognized that there have been recent grants. There's what's called the BEAD grant, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Grant, $42 million, and so the piece there in terms of getting high-speed internet access to unserved and underserved, this is hopefully and will be addressing that and can address it. I don't want to use the word issue, but where counties need to play a strong role is working closely with the internet service providers and sharing, here's what we're seeing. And also, there is a process at the state level now to challenge what some of the statistics and results that are coming back to say, here's what we are seeing, and this gets into using GIS and some of the other tools within the county. And while you're reporting that this particular segment has access, we're showing you that only one person does, and here's why. And so very important for the counties to be involved in working with the state and with the federal government, giving information back of this is what our data is showing us, and being involved as those BEAD funds, the grant funds I mentioned, as they're being deployed and given out to the counties or to the ISPs across the United States.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say, and this is close to my heart, just watching, as you said, it's not just a rural and an urban problem. There's the access issue, of course, but there's the affordability. And both rural and urban have both of those issues.
Yes.
You can be in Columbus, Ohio, and maybe not have access to the internet because of where you live. And so keeping that in mind and working with the libraries in the area, those type of institutions to help bring broadband or bring internet access is really important.
We have in Franklin County, we have a digital equity alliance that is locked in on just what you said. And the city of Columbus and Franklin County are making an investment that will end up being a minimum of $20 million plus to close that gap.
Yeah.
Because it impacts the social determinants of health. It impacts educational access, because if you got fast broadband, there's no boundaries on where you can attend school.
That's right. That's right.
Because most universities got robust online programs now.
And think about this too. The pandemic proved even more so how difficult this was. Schools went to online learning. And now there are still many that offer, as you said, the online programs. Those programs, at least at the college level, are less expensive than being on campus. So now you've narrowed the gap of who can actually attend and complete course material. So, yep, definitely. We know with artificial intelligence and generative AI that the computing power needed is strong. We know that universities are starting to teach and train on that, because that's where our workforce that's coming into local government is going to need to be skilled and have that tool under their belt. It's back to having access. If I don't have internet access, how am I going to learn about artificial intelligence and generative AI?
Yes, and people are using broadband access to either to stream information, because there's so much out there in content for mental health treatment, and we talked on education, how just simple things like how to eat healthy. And if you don't have broadband access, you can't access this whole world of content that's out there.
Well, think about telehealth, and think about the cost of going into the doctor's office, paying for that doctor visit, as opposed to doing a telehealth visit. And definitely, sometimes in many cases, it could be no cost or a very low cost, and you have you have the different levels of availability of money to pay for those expenses. So telehealth can be much more cost effective and more timely as well. But you need the access.
Do you feel like with the expiration of policies like the Affordable Connectivity Program, will we see affordable and reliable internet access be provided to our residents across the country?
Boy, that is a hard question to answer. We've seen some expiration of some funding, and we know that is making it harder for individuals to have internet access. And so NACo is continuing to, from our government affairs side, continuing to advocate for that and for funding along the way. And that's where the strong partnerships with the providers is really important. I think we will see more providers, not that they haven't stepped up, but I think we'll see more stepping up to bring this to fruition, so that, my dream is that everyone will have access. Now, whether that will happen or not, in my lifetime, I don't know. But it is the goal, for sure.
Everybody got to be in the fight together for broadband access for all. There should be universal access, in my opinion, and it should be a cost should not be a barrier for any individual in a place like the United States of America. Just given the sheer resources that we have.
Oh, absolutely.
We have some of the largest and most prosperous information technology companies in the world. And if it's nothing but an act of kindness and charity, we ought to be able to close the digital divide that we've been talking about. It seems like we've been talking about, and I could have this wrong, it seems like we've been talking about the digital divide at least 20 years.
And it's escalated. The conversation has escalated definitely in the past 10 years, because our technology has become better at showing what are the issues and then what are our solutions now, because technology is improving and getting better. So I do think we will get there. It is just going to take more time.
It's just been you look back in the early 90s, dial-up was a luxury. People being able to be on the internet at very slow speeds. I remember downloading content and you could go and take a nap and still waiting on it to download.
Well, and if you're out in the country, that's still there, unfortunately, depending on what access you have. And when we look at the satellite opportunities now that are there that weren't there even 5 years ago, that's helping to bridge that gap. So I know we're going to continue to watch and see how the technology advances. The cost of it and how our providers allocate that cost is yet to be determined, whether that hopefully will not go up, stabilize, and eventually maybe will go down.
We see in the news, large systems going down, impacting commerce. We've seen governmental entities taken offline due to ransomware attacks and such. Let's talk about the topic that keeps a number of CIOs up at night, and that is their cybersecurity strong enough to stand up against the constant threats out there?
It is a moving target. That is probably the best way to explain the cyber attacks. And you're right. When we do our icebreakers and our round robin conversations with CIOs and say what keeps you up at night, cyber is still the most frequent answer that is given to that question. And what we are seeing, and I'm very pleased to see that the work NACo has done in providing resources and guidance, is we are seeing improvements in local government to put in defenses that help mitigate. I think, as we always say, it's not if you're going to be attacked, it's when you're going to be attacked. And whether it's an incident that you can contain or it becomes a breach, part of that depends on what the best practices you have in place. And so that's a ongoing conversation. There's different approaches, but there are some basics, and more counties are understanding what the basics are and are putting those basics in place. The easiest basic to share, of course, is passwords. Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about passwords for 20 plus years.
Right.
And now it's, you don't just need a password, you also need to get a code on your phone.
Dual factor authentication is now the thing.
Yeah. And that is a significant way in which to prevent the infection of the viruses into your network. And the cloud solutions that many counties are using now. It's the statistics are very high in terms of 80 to 90% prevention can occur by having that dual factor authentication in place. The other area that we
users don't like dual factor authentication at all. Users don't like it at all across the board. Folks like us that are involved in governmental entities and are afraid of an attack, we can tolerate the inconvenience, but it isn't universally popular yet, dual factor authentication. Many people had an option to skip, they got their Ring doorbell camera system or whatever, and it said, not now. They program, not now. We'll do that now.
I love the camera though. I love the Ring camera and the safety it can bring. As you said, it introduces a whole nother aspect in terms of protection, even from a personal level, the password that maybe you use to manage that device. So, yeah.
And then some people can't create a complex enough password to save their life because they've been used to putting on a sticky note their dog's name, or I've heard stories of people password being password when they call. What's your password?
Password 123.
It was like this study that was done, and they were going around surveying people in people were making their passwords so simple that anybody could guess it. If you looked them up on Facebook and looked up each one of their kids, you could just pretty much figure out how to access stuff.
Did you see the one late night special where they interviewed a lot of folks? I won't say the name of it, but they interviewed a whole different group of individuals, and that was the question, what's your password? And, well, I'm not going to tell you that. And then they ask them other questions, and, oh, I just told you my password. Because, like you said, dog's name, cat's name, family members, birth dates. So that's why the dual authentication is really important. Getting that PIN on your phone really helps cut down on the attacks that are going to get through.
And people you ask them why they do it, they were like, because I can't remember all of that. I write it down on paper, and then I can't find the piece of paper I wrote it on. And I'm tired of having to hit forgot password, then had to go through all the steps involved with it. I forgot my password in order to restore it. Let's talk about, that takes me to a few final, and we're wrapping up here. Let's talk about the importance of training in the workplace.
I'm glad you bring that up, and specifically in relation to cybersecurity. The educating your staff in the county and any other local government is so important. There are tools out there for sure that will do pretend emails that will come into your email system, and you may click on it and all of a sudden it looks like you had some malware put on your computer. Well, it was a pretend email. Now you have to take some training. So there are online tutorials to help improve the cybersecurity and help educate individuals on look at what's in the email, look at where it's coming from, and look at where it's going. The other piece of it is the training can be from what we call tabletops. You do emergency management, you do tabletops. Right. Same thing with cybersecurity. NACo partners with Professional Development Academy, and we do quarterly tabletops in a virtual environment. And we have to date done about 16 of those over the past 4 years, and over 2,000 county individuals have been part of that. So those are really important ways to improve the education of your department directors, your elected officials, as well as your line staff, as we call it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's certain things that, those listening to this podcast, it's not likely that you're going to be offered 4 days and 3 nights anywhere just by hitting a link. Not likely. It's going to cause you some kind of pain. Or it's just a random free box of Krispy Kreme donuts. Don't go for it. Or particularly in the workplace.
Or it could be the UPS package at the holiday time. Did you really place that UPS order?
Yes. And some of these emails look so authentic. I mean, you have to really stare them down. And I'm just like a big fan of the phishing button.
Yes.
When in doubt, hit the phishing button. Send it off. Let some experts clean it, and then send it back to you and say that it was. People shouldn't have fear about getting the email back to find out that it's legit when they thought it was something.
I just had one 3 days before this conference, and I'm like, why am I getting this scanner email? So I sent it to the fish alert button, and then our operations person said, hey, did you get that email to show the package was mailed? So it was a real one, but I'd rather do it that way and find out, okay, I was playing it safe, and in my position, the last thing I want is for me to be the one that infiltrates the organization with malware. I'd rather play it safe and have someone say to me, oh, let me resend it to you, so now it came from me.
Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up you want to share? A fun fact or a great quote? We always like to give bonus content to the listeners of Talk of the County.
Oh man, some great quotes. I have a couple quotes, and of course I won't be able to think of them right now. What I will say is that the joy I have in working with the county IT leaders and just providing content and resources from the technology perspective is so rewarding. Working with your county IT leaders and their involvement on our committees.
Are they all right?
They're all right.
IT leaders all right?
Yeah,
They're pretty
they're
good
good.
people.
You are very fortunate to have the staff that you have in that area. You
I
really
think
are.
they're all right too.
Yeah.
Out of the way, I think they're all right too.
So anyway, I can't think of the quote. There's one quote I like to give, but it's my pleasure to work with the county IT leaders, and I serve on their behalf. I think that's the important thing. NACo's mission is to serve counties, and it's my personal mission to serve the county IT leaders.
Yeah, I thought you may have something biblical or something to say being a minister's wife.
I have been, that's right, I've ministered for 37 years, and so, oh my gosh.
The Bible is filled with quotes. It's like quotes. It's like quotes of all quotes. Life's best quotes. Where?
Well, the one phrase that comes to mind.
It's the best book. It's the best book ever. You know, there's not a better book than the Bible.
You're absolutely. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're absolutely right. There's an Albert Einstein quote, and I can't think of it right now, that I like to use. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
See, I had to.
Okay, so this doesn't even apply to this, but it kind of does. Okay. You've had a ransomware incident, not your county. County's had a ransomware incident, or there's been some catastrophe with technology. The quote I like to use with my staff when something goes wrong, I said, listen, there's a difference between tragedy and comedy, and it's time. You'll look back on this situation in 6 months, and you'll see some humor in it. And they're like, really? I said, yeah, trust me, you will. You will. And you will have grown from it. So that's about the only quote I can think of for today.
Okay. I know we were so orderly, and then I went sideways.
That's all right.
So I'm gonna hit you with another one before we wrap up.
I hope I can.
Beach or mountains? This one easy.
Oh, this one's easy. Beach. 100%. I grew up in South Jersey, and we called it the beach. Everyone coming in from other states called it the shore. It is the beach.
Beach has been winning out during these podcasts. Whenever I ask that question, beach is really way ahead of mountains. I believe I may have had one person say they want to be in the mountains. I don't know what it is. It's something about the beach. Everyone chooses beach.
So in closing, and this won't mean anything after Sunday, but this is Shark Week. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
We're in Tampa, and it is Shark Week. And on Sunday morning, and Adam, your CIO is participating in this. We are doing a workshop on cyber best practices in the fashion of the Shark Tank television program.
Okay. Who says that there's this creativity used in a positive way?
That's right.
All right, this has been a great conversation here talking with the CIO of NACo, Ms. Rita Reynolds. We've had a great conversation, great second podcast here at the NACo annual meetings, and I appreciate everything you do for America's counties. And in closing, as we always conclude, do you, nobody else has time to.